read you a letter from one of those. Dear President Eric and Board of Directors, it is with mixed emotions that I write this letter of resignation from the Hendersonville Rotary Club. My reason for resigning is due to doors opening for me to move to Nashville. After moving temporarily to Hendersonville in 1994, one great opportunity after another has come my way, and I have grown to love this town and call it home. I had the privilege of joining this club in the year 2000, and I want to thank all of you for 11 excellent years. This experience has truly enhanced my life. I will never forget the time serving with my fellow Hendersonville Rotarians, the best Rotary Club in the world. I can say this with authority as I have had the opportunity to visit clubs here and abroad. I am really going to miss seeing you all every Wednesday. However, my plan is to join a Rotary Club in the Nashville area. This will not only allow me to continue serving as a Rotarian, but will give opportunity to come visit Hendersonville Rotary Club, the city by the lake on the north side of Nashville. So with that being said, I'm not really saying goodbye, just see you later. All the best, Robin Williams. Robin, you'll be missed, but you're welcome back anytime. Let him cry. Robin, where are you? Over here. Everybody's welcome to give Robin a big hug today, except for Paul Good. Paul, you have to stay 50 feet away. One other announcement, orientation, new member orientation is August 17th. That's next Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. at St. Timothy's, back where we normally be. Okay, on with the show. Our first guest today is a past president of this club. She was the Rotarian of the Year and Lifetime Distinguished Service Award winner, the first woman to win both of those awards. She is our representative in the U.S. House of Representatives from the 6th District, the Honorable Diane.
I don't want to be behind there. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's so great to be home, but please don't move my house the next time I come home. You know, I thought I was up at St. Timothy, and then I got a call and said, don't forget, we're someplace new. I know I don't have very much time this morning, but this came as a result of a conversation that I had this past week with Cheryl Sessler. And she said, you know, I'm really disappointed in the vote that you made this last week. And I then went into a conversation with her to explain, from my perspective, why I believe that we needed to do what we did this past week. And so as we talked, she said, you know, why don't you call Becca and see if maybe you can have a few minutes to talk to the Rotarians. So what I want to do is I've already had Eric make sure he times me, because I get off on my time as I start talking. I want to leave a few minutes, about 5 minutes, for you to be able to ask me questions. So it's going to be really hard to take what we have done for the last 8 months and put it into about 10 minutes, but I'm going to try to give you an overview. First of all, you all know we are in a tremendous debt, $14.2 trillion before the most recent action that occurred last week, which is going to bring us up to $14.6 trillion. We cannot sustain this debt. I knew that we had a debt problem when I went to Congress. What I didn't realize is the debt crisis we have. And truly, I'm not one of those folks that gets real emotional about things or dramatic, but it is truly a crisis. And the more I learn, the more I recognize that we are headed over an edge on a cliff, that if we do not turn this around, we are going to look just like they do over in Europe. And so, let me talk briefly about what we have done so far, and then I'm going to launch into that piece of legislation a little bit. When I first got to Congress, we were talking about a continuing resolution. And folks would say, well, what's a continuing resolution? Why do you have to pass that? What you have to realize is that since this administration came into office, there has not been a budget passed. It's been over 800 days since the Senate passed a budget. Now, there are things that have been passed over to that, but they have not passed the budget, which puts us into a position where we have to look at a budget that was done back in 2009, and that's what we're continuing forward with, is a continuing resolution. Continuing resolutions are passed by both of the bodies, and they're given a certain date where they have to be revisited, and that's what we did as soon as we got there. The President wanted to grow that continuing resolution by about 5%. And we said, no, we are not going to vote for that. Fortunately, we do have the majority in the House. But now remember, we only have 1/2 of 1/3 of the equation, because we don't have a majority over the Senate and we don't have the President to pass our bills. So we held firm on that, and there could be a whole lot of arguments about how much money really was saved in that, because it is crazy the way they do budgets in Washington. The way they do budgets in Washington is on a 10-year cycle. So when you hear us talk about doing a budget, we're not doing a budget year to year like we either do in our households or our businesses or even in the state of Tennessee. What we're doing is we're projecting out 10 years. So there's a lot of confusion about when you pass a budget what you're really doing. But we were able to hold the line on the continuing resolution and be a speed bump on the road for this administration. So we did cut the continuing resolution, cut that budget. Then the President by law is required to give us a budget in February. His budget came out, and his budget once again grew government. Because we in the House did not like his budget, by rule, by law, we are able then to form a budget as well. And we did, and you all may have heard about the budget. It's called the Path to Prosperity. In that budget, we tackled something that is the holy grail that got us into a lot of trouble by a lot of groups, and that was entitlements. Because it is political suicide to tackle entitlements here in this country. But we were brave. I'm on that committee. And we sat in that committee and said, this has got to be done, whether it means defeat in the next election cycle or not. It doesn't matter. It's got to be done. That budget, if it had been passed, would have saved us $6.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, is that still enough? No, it's not enough. It still does not bring us to balance, but it began a whole turn in something that has not been done in Congress in anybody's memory, and that is to start to bend the curve of the spending and bring it down. Now, I often say, in an analogy, that this government is like a battleship and not like a kayak. You're not going to turn this around in a day. And as Dave Ramsey says, when you're getting out of debt, you do the debt snowball, and that's what we began doing. That budget was passed in the House bipartisan. So we have both Democrats and Republicans. We passed it over to the Senate. The Senate voted our budget down. We even had some Republicans that would not vote for our budget because, again, the Holy Grail, Medicare was being reformed in there, and we got no Democrats on that. But what the media doesn't tell you is, what do you think happened to the President's budget? The President's budget did not get a single vote in the Senate. Not one vote. Not even Harry Reid voted for his budget. And you'd say, well, why is that? Because they knew that was political suicide. That budget grew the government so much that they knew if they voted for that, they were going to get in trouble with the American people. Now, you've all heard about the Tea Party, terrorists, and so on. Look, the Tea Party is no more than my neighbor, people I go to church with, people I shop in the grocery store. It is not like a Republican Party or a Democrat Party. It is a group of people that have awakened. I love the fact that America has awakened to what's going on, because if anybody knows what's happened in Congress for the last 2 years, other than what you may hear on television, do you all know that the debt limit has been raised 6 times in the last 2 years without any discussion whatsoever? So we have changed the culture in Washington. And when it came time for this debt limit increase, which, by the way, we are borrowing 42 cents on every dollar that the government spends. So that $14.2 trillion is like a credit card. I got to Congress, 87 new people got to Congress on our side of the aisle, and we had a credit card sitting there. And what do you say? We're not going to pay our credit card? Oh, by the way, we're just not going to pay that because previous Congresses did that? No. There's full faith and credit in the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. We're going to pay our bills. So we had a decision to make. And that decision was not an easy one, but it began a conversation that has never happened with a debt ceiling increase. The President asked for a clean debt ceiling increase. We said, okay, we'll give it to you. You're not going to pass that debt ceiling increase without conversation, without some cuts, without some significant pieces being put in there. And he kept pushing, the Democrats kept pushing, we gave it to him. You know what? It failed miserably.